TVs do not come optimized out of the box. To the left, we have the Sony A80L versus the TCL QM8 after the TCL QM8 has had settings optimized. And I'm telling you right now, it's a massive difference. So as you can clearly see, the Sony is in vivid mode, which is the out of the box mode that you kind of have. Doesn't look very great. Everything more or less is pretty oversaturated. We go to standard, things clean up a little bit more. But again, it's still not ideal. There's still a little bit more in the way of oversaturation. Things just don't look as natural as they should look. Then we go to cinema mode. And that's the mode where I've plugged in my settings to make it really look the best that it possibly can look. And if you want to see what this TV is capable of, make sure you join. I got you guys as usual. You guys know what the deal is. And if you're new here, definitely join, grab the settings, and that way you're good to go. And you'll see what your TV can actually do. Most calibrators are probably gonna try to charge you somewhere in the ballpark of $500 to do exactly what I've done here, which is make sure that your skin tones are accurate, colors look good. And again, we're talking from a point of perceptual accuracy, not computer accuracy. So what that means in English is when you look at it, it looks true to life, not just looking at what some computer tells you is correct and just running with that. So if that's the kind of thing that you like, definitely make sure you join, as I was saying before. And with that, let's get started. To the left, we have the Sony A80L, and to the right, we have the TCL QM8. Now, the big thing to take away with this entire comparison is that both TVs are optimized. These are not out of the box settings. If you want these settings, make sure you join the membership. It's $5, and then you'll be able to see what your TV is actually capable of. I bring that up because 9 times out of 10, people whipping their TV out of the box kind of deprive themselves of what they're actually paying for. So I go ahead and optimize all that stuff up for you. If you're interested in that or you're curious about what your TV can actually do, link up with me down below in the comment section and I'll take care of you. Now, the TCL is doing an incredible job in terms of black levels. We can just get that out of the way right now. We're in a pitch black room, more or less, minus my bias lighting in the background. And the OLED is obviously going to have its black level benefit because it's self-emissive. But the TCL, it's doing a damn good job. I don't see even the faintest glimmer of any bloom of any kind whatsoever. This is a massive win for people who don't want to have to deal with burn-in concerns, okay? And they want that extra brightness. This is the biggest win I've seen on an LED TV in a long time. And I've got to say, it is truly a sight for sore eyes, and it's very impressive to watch. Now, before I had some star crushing, but in Star Wars, quite literally, the stars are literally dark, jet black, and they look, or not jet black, but they're very visible, as you can clearly see, every individual star in the sky. Now, it will dim down a little bit over time, but even still with that, it's still holding its own incredibly well against an OLED. And can we say that again? An OLED. It's not like a QLED or no, this is like OLED to micro LED. This is doing an incredible job. And I think, again, this really is a testament. Right now, this thing is going for a little bit over 1,100, so 1,200 after taxes, give or take. And you basically have OLED performance more or less when you get to scenes like this in a dark room. And before anyone tries to ask about those crazy TIE fighter scenes, yeah, those are buttoned up too. As you can clearly see, the TCL has no problem keeping everything uniform without any blooming whatsoever, even with stars in the sky. The stars are very visible, and so is the laser blast without any bloom whatsoever. This is a massive win for literally every single person. I'm not even joking right now. Like, this is such a big win for every single person who decides that they want to watch Star Wars in a dark room. Now, if you're just watching stars in a dark room and there's no TIE fighter, well, the TCL will dim down, but as you can clearly see, the brightness is there, the color is there, and it's doing a great job. Both TVs are doing an excellent job in this scenario. As we look at both of these TVs, you can see that the TCL has crazy good brightness. We're getting a lot of expression in the gloves of Sonic here, very, very detailed, a lot of light here, but at the same token, we are missing a lot in terms of the background detail where there's a lot of clipping happening here and here. It just gets blown out where the Sony does a better job of retaining detail. And when I tell you Sonic's face on the Sony A80L is just next level, like You cannot even compare these two TVs. Not just the face, also the little gloves, the hands, like literally all the details are just coming through on the Sony. And again, that has everything to do with the cognitive processor. And if we look at this image here, we can kind of see more of the same. Now you really can see what I'm talking about when I say the brightness sometimes comes as a detriment on the TCL. As we can clearly see to the right, the TCL is more pale, like it's just more pale by comparison. There really is no way around that just because of that extra brightness. And I've tested it, even if you lower it down a bit, you still don't have the same level of color purity like you would have on the Sony. They're doing a really good job of still holding their own and honestly drawing out that color in a way that is just mesmerizing. Now, when we go to more examples, again, this is where it becomes even more clear that the brightness, again, not always going to be a benefit on the TCL. As we can clearly see to the left, the Sony is doing an excellent job of rendering everything separately from another. So what that means in English is like every part of the image that's supposed to literally be a defined object is defined. If we look at this, you can see the rail is separated from Sonic's hand, is separated from Sonic's face, is separated from the background, and then you have Tails in the background. Everything is separated. Here, it's a very two-dimensional kind of feeling, and it's very, very blown out. It's like you're missing a ton of the detail. If you just try to look and make out detail in Tails' eyes here versus over here, you can kind of see a lot of what I'm talking about. But not just Tails' eyes. If you look at Sonic's eyes as well, the expression just comes through way more true to life than what is happening on the TCL to the right. So Sony definitely, when we talk about movies, is like absolutely dominating from this perspective. I honestly think this is one of the more dramatic examples that I could show you because we can clearly see that Tails is just coming through ultra crystal clear. It's like basically the difference between looking at a UHD TV versus an HD TV in terms of the clarity differences between the two. It's not to say that the TCL doesn't have clarity, but when going up against the Sony A80L, it does tend to kind of taper off a bit. Now, this is important to note because the price points are very similar, right? $1,200 more or less for both of them, give or take. At least that's what we're going to expect on sale days and things like that. They're going to be about the same price, and then you have to determine, do you go for the 55-inch A80L, get the better picture quality, or do you get bigger size, more brightness, things like that? And you're going to have to weigh that up for yourself, and hopefully this video will help you. Now, this is one of the things that I really find very interesting. So now it kind of switches, right? The TCL absolutely slaughtering everything the Sony is capable of doing right now in terms of color. The color just looks way better, and these lower lit scenes where you have a lot of high contrasted elements like the emerald, like the red on Dr. Eggman's coat, things like that just pop way more. That is important because as you're looking as well, the shade of green is richer and more pure on the TCL. Now, the quantum dots in there are just a benefit. You can't get around that. And the WOLED is kind of holding back the green a little bit on the Sony. It just isn't as pure or as luminous as it needs to be for this particular example. To literally the shock of absolutely no one, the Sony A80L pulls ahead in terms of skin tones. So as you can clearly see, as we look at Titanic, you can clearly see that there's just a lot more happening there. Rose looks way more true to life, way more realistic. You immediately gravitate towards the Sony A80L. However, the brightness, obviously, on the TCL QM8 is definitely a factor and a benefit here. And again, more scenes you can watch, you'll see like, it depends, you have the details. So I think really the kind of person that's gonna go for the Sony A80L, you're somebody that you prefer that cinematic image. You prefer a real to life image, right? Something that's very realistic, very true to form. But if you go to the TCL, you're somebody who prefers a brighter image that like has more of that like almost HDR glow and pop. Again, neither direction is wrong. It's just really gonna boil down to your preference and how you watch TV. Now we have to talk about motion, and unfortunately Sony still has all the same problems that they've had forever that I've been talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and play this demo here, and you're going to kind of see what I'm talking about. There's just such a shakiness to the Sony image that it's just undeniable. So while they're great at producing beautiful image quality, the bridge scene right here, if you slow this down in YouTube, I can almost guarantee you're going to see that shaking, or not even slow it down, just look very carefully. The TCL is smoother by leagues. Like, it's not even a comparison at this point. And this is big news because TCL is often kind of looked down upon as some budget brand that can't really hold its punches in certain areas of processing, but motion processing is definitely an area where TCL is pulling ahead. So while yes, the cognitive processor has amazing advantages in terms of the sheer details it can pull out, that's cute if you're looking at still images. But when movement starts happening, Sony is just not a leader or a pioneer anymore in that field. Now, this might be contrary to what some people are comfortable believing, but we're just presenting this stuff factually. And again, very clearly, if you watch the Unreal Engine demo, you will see all of the shakiness and like as the cop cars even are coming towards us, as the character is moving to the back seat, it's all very jittery on the Sony, where the TCL is remaining pretty smooth. Now there is, again, some motion blurring that does happen from time to time, but it's nowhere near as just jarring to look at, uncomfortable to look at as a Sony. Like particle effects, like the gun as it's shooting, all the sparks flying off, it looks terrible on the Sony. And this is not objectively speaking, I guess. This is just like factually speaking, because looking at the two comparatively, you cannot say that the TCL isn't like slick, like butter, just smooth and feels natural like it would happen in the real world, where this Sony is just not doing that. I don't know what Sony's direction with motion is, but they've really got to go back to basics here because it's clearly a very, very big weakness. Okay, so now we're going to show you more in depth of how bad the Sony motion is. You can probably already see some of the artifacts to the left on the Sony A80L where the TCL remains mostly smooth, not anywhere near the artifacts. This is the kind of thing that I've been talking about for years that people are pretending is not the case. That train is not smooth, and when you have train scenes in anime or in action movies or whatever, you're going to have major problems. Also, look at the amount of jitter that's coming on the Sony with the train moving in this example. And again, it's not like the TCL is perfect either. They have micro jitters, but nowhere near what Sony is exhibiting. Now let's look at the helicopter. Sony's going to bomb this. I'm already seeing artifacts right now. Again, this is important to show because people are writing TCL off as a budget brand. Well, look at what your so-called top-end brand is producing. Artifacts, smeary, smudgy motion, where it shouldn't exactly have that. Now again, TCL, the blade is clear. I can make it out very clearly. Sony, I am noticing the blade is breaking apart a lot more. Now, it's going to kind of continue like that throughout this entire thing, where you're going to notice like TCL is going to have the smoother motion and Sony is just going to struggle overall. And I think that's something that a lot of people should note. Unfortunately, if you're a sports fan and you watch a lot of hockey, the WOLED technology is still going to pale in comparison to the TCL. As you can clearly see, it looks blue, and I'm actually looking at it with my naked eye, and it looks blue by comparison to the TCL. So yeah, WOLED, not a win for sports. So overall, both TVs are pretty incredible. If you're somebody that wants good black levels, both TVs will deliver phenomenal black levels. If you want highlights and brightness, the TCL is your guy. If you're somebody that wants clarity, and I mean exceptional clarity and good color, then of course you're going to go with the Sony. But overall, they are very competitive in a lot of different areas. It just depends on what area matters more to you. If you like motion, you're going to end up going with the TCL. If you watch a lot of hockey, you're going to go with the TCL. It's just, again, you have to understand how you're watching, what you're watching. And that's where you kind of go to either one of these televisions. Me personally, what I would recommend and what I like, again, would change based on what you are doing with it. Now, as far as just general, which has the better picture quality, the better picture quality goes to the Sony. We can give that a win overall. But in terms of value, and dollar for dollar, what you're getting, the TCL is an absolute no-brainer comparatively to the Sony, given the black level performance, the brightness, the features that it offers, the colors, the clarity. It's a really good TV, and then we're not even talking about the smooth motion that it has. I mean, it is just a win of a win of a win, and it's going to be very hard to justify if this does go up in sale or in price, or even just trying to get the 65-inch variant like I have here of the TCL for the Sony, paying that extra markup when you don't really need to. That's going to be a really tough sell. So I think all in all, it's just one of those things you just kind of have to take at face value. But that being said, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down below. Thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.